The desert. The sun came up in Belcrest once more. Allison's eyes were closed, waiting for the sounds of the camp below to fill her ears. Dashtian going on about not knowing where he left an object the night before, and Drawny complaining about some mess someone surely had made while intoxicated, people walking and wishing others good morning as they passed. Eyes still closed, the assassin felt the engraving on the silver ring she was holding. The ring had been delivered to the desert by a 7-year-old worker. Sean probably thought not even Evan would have it in him to harm the little girl. Allison didn't know. The man wasn't present at the time, and she knew that she had fought the urge to send the worker's corpse back to Sean in pieces. She didn't touch the kid. It wasn't her fault after all, but the thought of Sean made her feel a level of anger she hadn't experienced in a couple of years. She thought she put the part of herself to rest, but her former colleague seemed to know exactly what to do to awaken it. "Allison!" a voice called down in the distance. Allie opened her eyes to see a mercenary waving with both arms in the direction of the tower the young assassin was looking down from. He couldn't see her there in the distance, but everyone knew that if Allie wasn't on a job and wasn't in plain sight, she was on top of the watchtower. It had become a favorite place, much like the lake once used to be back in the forest. Quickly, she climbed down into the ruins of the fire temple and walked out of the building in the direction of the mercenary who had called her name. It only took a few minutes for the young woman to get from the top of the construction to the ground, and the man didn't seem surprised as the girl reached him, a gentle smile crossing her face. "Jackson," she greeted. "How did the hunt go?" she asked him, still smiling until she caught the look in the man's eyes. Jackson shook his head. "We lost Lionel. One moment he was right behind me, the next he was gone." The man heaved a sigh. "Then, next we knew, we heard this noise, like something dropping, and when we all turned to look, his body was lying dead on the trail. They killed Lionel." Allie sighed. Those bastards. She took the time to guard the ring, which she still held firmly in her pocket. "Have you told Indrani about it yet?" "No, not yet," the man mumbled, staring at his feet. Then he raised his head and gave her a weak smile. "I managed to shoot a rabbit, though." Allie chuckled, resting a hand on the man's shoulder. "That's really good, Jack. I'm impressed. Rabbits are fast little buggers," she said, attempting to cheer the man up a little. "So they are," the man agreed. Then, tilting his head to one side and giving her a playful smirk, the mercenary reached out and ran one finger down the bridge of her nose, which was red due to sunburn. "You're a sensitive little forest creature, aren't you?" he provoked. "Can't really remember the last time your face wasn't red. Or maybe it's just my charm," he stated. Allie rolled her eyes in annoyance and gave the man a gentle push away from her. "I see that you're feeling better now." "Why, yes, but there are faster ways of cheering up a guy up," he replied, winking at her. Allie sighed. "Isn't your throat sore yet?" Jackson looks at her in confusion. "What?" "You know, from all this barking up the wrong tree you've been doing lately," she replied, smirking. Jackson had opened his mouth to reply, but was cut off by another crimson that had been running towards them at full speed, tripping over everything. The man stopped, took one breath, and exclaimed in overly excited tone, "Dashtian wants everyone available to go to the training area. He's going to fight Chris." He grabbed each of them by the shoulder and exclaimed in much more excited tone in one single breath, "What are you people waiting for?" That said, he ran straight to the training area. Allie and Jackson stood for a second, and then the two of them ran to the training fields themselves as fast as they possibly could. The excitement was for a reason. For over 2 years, Dashtian and Chris had been training in there, and every time Dashtian would forbid anyone to go near the training area, not to interfere with concentration. Now he was asking people to go there. This would certainly be entertaining. As they arrived at the training field, a small crowd had gathered, and now Allie understood why Dashtian had done that. Cries looked extremely uncomfortable by the amount of people all around her. She looked slightly suffocated. Her face was pale, and her hands were shivering. "All right," Dashtian exclaimed. "Shut your mouths and just watch. Don't make me kick your sorry butts out of here." Allie took a seat on the top of the nearby boulder, immediately going silent and watching Chris carefully as she began to take deep breaths to concentrate. "What's she doing?" Jackson whispered next door. "She's ignoring us," Allie stated. "Or trying to, at least." Jackson chuckled. I betcha the blind girl is going to be eating sand in a moment, Jackson stated. My last pay against yours. What'd you say, Blondie? He asked, offering a handshake. Allie gave the mercenary a suspecting glance before shaking his hand. Fine. Then she looked back at the arena to see that the Dashkin had sat on the ground. Now what is he doing? She mumbled. Jackson chuckled. You haven't seen Chakra's enlightenment yet. Oh, what fun! What? Allie's questioning was interrupted by Adrani's voice on the other side of her. He's using John on her? That's a little too much, she stated. John? Allie turned to Andrani with completely confused expression. Andrani, however, simply nodded towards the arena. Allie turned her eyes to see the shadow figure that had appeared standing before Chris, holding replicas of Dashtin's sword in its hands. His exact silhouette, his own shadow, materialized and alive, or at least animated. Holy shit, she mumbled, watching as Chris pulled her katana and took a stance. Is he controlling it? She asked, watching Dashtin as he sat there, his eyes turned completely black. Adrani chuckled. Not quite. I mean, in a way you can say John has a mind of its own. He has free will, even unless Dashtin gives him a direct order. Dashtin tells me that, in reality, it is only a figment of his own personality. So John is a version of Dashtin, only fully rational and void of emotion, which means he won't hesitate to kill Crystal. Allie's eyes widened as she watched the shadow advance towards Chris, slowly, step by step. Void of emotion? Yes, Adrani confirmed. He also feels no pain and cannot be killed. I mean, it's a shadow. The only way to stop John is knocking Dashtin unconscious. So I assume her goal is to reach him. How long can he keep it animated? Allie asked, now unable to keep her eyes from the shadow figure as it circled Chris. His record is 3 days. But it almost killed him, Adrani answered, a hint of excitement concealed in her tone. I'm going back on that bet, Allie stated. Nah, Blondie, Jackson grinned. You shook on it. A deal's a deal. Damn it, she muttered. Are you ready? Dashtin had asked as he sat down on the sand. Once I summon him, there's no turning back. Sure, what's another beating? If it doesn't know any better, I think he enjoys it. Dashtin chuckled slightly. That's me you're sensing there, Red. Figured, Chris stated, drawing her katana and readying herself for an incoming strike. In the past 2 years, she had gone back to the very basics of her training, using her senses instead of her enlightenment. Dashtin's enlightenment was the perfect aid, a living opponent with no emotions. Not only that shadow was completely silent. The only way to fight that thing was on raw instinct, something she had come to develop. The progress had finally reached a point where they could take it one step further, relying on her senses despite her enlightenment. The level of excitement of her little advance was more than enough to give Chris uncomfortable shivers. Soon enough, she felt the shadow's presence circling her. It was difficult to explain. She could feel the movement on her skin. It was just cold. Finally, she took a single step towards Dashtin, immediately being forced to dodge the incoming hits. She slashed at the shadow, but it didn't even slow it down. She had forgotten how useless it was to attack it. The more the fight progressed, the more the excitement and tension grew around her. Such an overwhelming feeling. Shit, Chris muttered as the shadow's dark blade nicked her face. Her mind was drifting off. That couldn't happen. Again, it nicked her. Again! Finally, she fell with her back on the ground, immediately rolling over to avoid the blade aimed directly at her head. Jumping to her feet, she felt a hand grab her ankle. Crap, she exclaimed, feeling the pull knocking her down again, face down in the sand, which was immediately followed by the weight of a knee on her back and a hand forcing her head down into the sand, causing her to suffocate. She heard Adrani's voice somewhere, calling Dashtin's name, asking him to stop it. However, she didn't succumb to the overall sensation of fear around her. She reached for a throwing knife in her belt, tried to pinpoint where Dashtin was sitting, and threw it at him. It must have worked, because the weight holding her down disappeared, and she managed to get on her hands and knees, coughing and spitting out sand. Son of a bitch! I hate that damn thing! She shouted after finally catching her breath. Dashtin laughed out. You didn't completely embarrass yourself, Red. Productive, but you only managed to break my concentration. I could have brought it back to finish the job. He stood in front of her and offered his hand. It was great progress, though. As Kreis got on her feet, wiping the sand of her hands and face, suddenly she lifted her head with the expression of someone who had felt an enormous chill down her spine. "What's the matter?" Dashton asked. "Chris, are you listening to me?" "It's just not possible," she mumbled, walking past Dashton and out of the arena. "Ha!" Jackson exclaimed. "Face down on the dirt, like I said. Pay up." Allison was barely paying attention to him, though she pulled a bag of coins and dropped it on his lap. "Here, take it," she mumbled, watching as Kreis pulled a knife and tossed it in Dashton's direction, missing him but causing him to lose concentration. The shadow faded and Chris was able to breathe. When Allie looked around, she noticed Indrani had left. "Where did she go?" she asked Jackson. "The scouts spotted travelers headed this way from the south. Indrani went to greet them and see what they want. It's her duty and all." Allie chuckled, hearing Chris shout that she hated the shadow, but her smile shut when she saw the look on her friend's face as she walked away. It was completely unrelated to the training. Something had happened. Something important. The ruins. White Shadow's encampment. It was a beautiful morning in the plains. A soft breeze was blowing and spreading the smell of flowers and tea throughout the encampment. Annie was sitting in her tent, staring at a sealed envelope, waiting on her cousin to show up, as she had asked him to the night before. Jake had argued with her about what she wanted him to do, but there was no other way to go about it. She couldn't possibly afford to send a healer as far as New Haven. The girl smiled brightly as she heard footsteps walking towards the tent. As Jake walked in, she had a cup of tea waiting for him. The man gave her annoyed a look as he sat in front of her. "No," he stated simply, accepting the teacup, but not drinking. "Jake, don't be a baby. Just deliver the letter. It's a simple task," she told him with a slight frown. "I haven't been in New Haven in, 2 years? Haven't been in the castle in almost 3. Doesn't it occur to you that I'm avoiding the place?" "Any more than you're avoiding everything else?" she asked him with a raised eyebrow. "Look, I have very few healers, a bunch of apprentices, minimum to no control over their enlightenments, and a considerable number of injured people to tend to. So I really could care less for your whining. You owe me this, and you're taking the damn letter to the Captain Masheria, and so help me, I will make your life a living hell," she exclaimed. Jake had opened his mouth to argue, but didn't find words to say and simply closed it again. Finally he heaved a long sigh. "All right, your worshipness," he muttered, taking the letter from her and standing up. As he left, a healer entered, looking rather shaky. "Annie, we have a situation." Annie followed the healers to the gates, and there a young man was simply making his way in. The reddish glow spread across his eyes was a warning for the healers not to stand in his way. He was simply passing through the healers in the most disrespectful way possible. However, Annie knew that Luke simply didn't understand the need for social conventions. They were just pointless. He only stopped when he saw her. Smiling pleasantly, he took a bow, although his exaggerated gesture was filled with sarcasm, and spoke. "Honorable leader of the White Shadows, I've come here to respectfully ask for access to your clan's archives." "Those are restricted, Lucas," Annie stated. "And cut the bullshit, please. I'm not in the mood." Lucas chuckled. "Oh my, the princess said shit." He nodded. "No, seriously, I need to see those files," he repeated, taking a step forward and looking straight into the girl's eyes. "I'd hate to be more persuasive," he whispered. Annie simply put a hand in his chest and pushed him away. However, she frowned when noticing that he had winced as she did so. "You're hurt," she stated. Lucas didn't answer. He simply repeated, "I need to see those files."